All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL DFS video. Going to be breaking down this Monday night showdown here between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Miami Dolphins, a slate that is pretty darn interesting. It's almost too easy to make a good lineup because of all the value that we are getting here, or perceived value. So we're going to go ahead and break that down. Should be a fun slate. Let's get into it. So as always, I'd like to start off with a quick game preview, guys. 3-point spread in favor of the Steelers, so nothing's really going to change much there. It is a lower scoring game, 42.3 total points. I actually think there's a chance for it to be a little bit higher scoring than that, although I definitely understand why we are getting this line. And so I want to start off here with Miami, although I do think we are going to get some pretty good value also with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So worth calling out, guys, Devon Achane, who was a little bit banged up last week, which led to Jalen Wright having a big game. He's going to be good to go in this game. Now, it's not necessarily a great matchup for him, but obviously that's going to be a good thing for the offense. Really, the two plays I like the most here are going to be Darren Waller, who's definitely too cheap already at his price tag. He's kind of been the receiver number 2 for this offense when he's been healthy. Ended up having a 55% route share. He's not going to play all that many snaps. Like if we get 50% of the snaps, that's great. They didn't need to throw the football that much last week against the Jets, which was unfortunate. But he is someone that's very intriguing to me. Ended up with the 3rd most air yards on the team last week, but Greg Dulcich is like insanely mispriced. I don't understand this. Okay. He had a 55% route share last week. He should be safe to be able to 2x at this price tag. I always hesitate to say safe, but I do feel like he should be safe at this price tag. He has a good chance to play 50% of the snaps total, maybe less than that, but he did end up with a 55% route share last week as well. What's interesting about him, guys, is he had some plays designed specifically for him, which was not surprising in the sense that 2 weeks ago in Darren Waller's return, the broadcast crew made a vocal point to really highlight Greg Dulcich a bunch. Okay. And then last week happened. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. They actually do like him. We're probably going to see a decent amount of 2 tight end sets or both Darren Waller and Greg Dulcich just being viable. And so he is an insane value at 1.6. We should be targeting him. Now, after that, guys, Jalen Waller gets a phenomenal matchup. I think he's going to be a pretty appealing captain play for us on the slate. Do think we want to begin to him. Devon Achane, I do think should end up being a safe play. Okay, like he's just been a stud. We probably do want to try to get to him as much as possible. Then from there, this is the difficult part about this slate, guys, is Tua has really been brutal in fantasy points. He's had a few big games early on in the season, but since then has been terrible. Now, this is going to be a good matchup, but I think a similar matchup was like Washington, maybe Baltimore as well, and he struggled in those games as well. I think it makes sense in game stacks if you are going to play Waddle, and then you could even get away with Tua in the captain spot if you have Achane and Waddle in your builds, because obviously Achane's going to get a lot of work in the passing game as well. I just struggle with him, but it is crazy to get a quarterback at under 10K in a very good matchup, and it's tough to click on him. Right. Malik Washington, I'm not getting too much. If we want to get to Riley Patterson, the kicker, we can. But after that, it is a tighter field for who we'd want to be in for Miami. So let's go ahead and jump into Pittsburgh. So guys, for Pittsburgh, I wouldn't say the values are necessarily as good, but Adam Thielen's pretty appealing to me. Ended up playing 47% of the snaps last week for the Steelers, had a 29% route share. If those numbers can double, well, I don't think they're going to double. Let's say if Thielen can get to 60% of the routes and maybe closer to 50% of the routes, we would love that. He only ended up with 3 air yards last week, which is a little bit ugly there. It really depends on the game flow, but I do like the thought process of him getting more snaps. But he is the tough part about this slate, and especially because then we don't know what to do with Calvin Austin, who at the start of the year was looking like a pretty decent option for fantasy purposes, especially with how he was being priced. But now he's a little bit more difficult to get to. And then MVS played a decent amount as well. Maybe he makes a big splash play, but those secondary passing weapons are tougher to predict. On top of that, we have to figure out which tight ends to get to. I do think we could almost set a rule to get to one of the tight ends, whether that be Pat Freiermuth, whether that be Jonnu Smith there. I'd be fine with that. But Darnell Washington has been the starting tight end for them. They like him. He seems the safest to give us some points. It's just whether or not he ends up scoring a touchdown, or even Pat Freiermuth. Like, I think those two are the safest bets. But it is kind of strange that like Darnell Washington's the cheapest among them. And so he's kind of the one I'd want to get to the most, but he's also a pretty darn appealing value to us as well. Then I don't necessarily love Romaine Wilson, guys, just not playing the many snaps. I don't think we need to get to him. So from there, the Steelers that we would want to play is obviously Aaron Rodgers. We want to play him. He's a safe play. Then we got DK Metcalf in a decent spot, but we also have both of these running backs that are playing about 50% of the snaps. And it is a little bit of a guessing game. Both of them ended up scoring a touchdown last week. Obviously, we can't trust that typically. Okay. I don't mind the idea of getting to one of them in the captain spot, just hoping that we get the touchdown correct. I actually think that ends up being a decent way to gain some leverage on the field. But overall, I don't think we necessarily need to do that either. So let's go ahead and try to give you guys a better first look build here. I don't mind DK Metcalf, guys. If you can afford to fit him into your build, you should. It is a matchup that I'm a little bit worried about, though. We'll put Waddle in the captain spot. And then what do we have left over? 7K. You can get to Kenny Gainwell. I think this is kind of just going to be our lineup process for the week or for the night. And it is tough because there's going to be so many different variations of lineups that you're going to like and lineups that hold a lot of logic. And I think both kickers are players that we should be looking at on this slate as well. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for our first look build. But let's go ahead and see what the 9-to-5 data is going to tell us is a better maybe lineup approach to go with. So guys, just a reminder, like we could set that rule to get to at least one of those tight ends in our builds for the Steelers. We could also do that for the Dolphins, and we could also do that for the running backs between Kenneth Gainwell and or Jalen Moore. Okay, and I really don't mind that. I don't want to do that for all my lineups, but maybe I do 75 lineups normal and then 75 lineups with that kind of game script optimal approach. Because again, I don't think all three Steelers tight ends are going to go off, but they're all too cheap to the point where we want to get to one of them. I think one of the Steelers running backs have a chance to score a touchdown. Warren is the most likely, but I do really like the idea of getting to at least one of them in the captain spot in a hefty amount of builds, maybe 30% of builds. But that is truly the tough part. Now I'm only going to run 20 lineups here so you guys can see what the top lineups are. HN, Rodgers, Metcalf, Gainwell, Freiermuth, and Gray Dulcich. So again, this makes a lot of sense. I like this lineup here. Another one here. HN, DK, Warren, which I'm fine with, Patterson, Waller, and Washington. I think we can even get away with Waller and Gray Dulcich in a lineup together. Now, if we're doing that, we have to probably do this where we're getting to Tua. But that's the thing, guys. This is such an interesting slate because there's a lot of correct options given the pricing, but it's going to be really dependent on the game flow. Here's an interesting lineup, and I do like Aaron Rodgers than captain. He's a little bit too cheap, and I think the lineups make the most sense with him. So obviously you go Rodgers, you get to DK, you can get to Washington. I like that. We're into both kickers, and we're still getting to HN. Like that ends up being a pretty good build as well. So there's lots of like lineup paths that we can get to, which to me is what makes this slate fun. It's going to be kind of fun to try to make some hand builds for this as well to really do game script based builds. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. I appreciate you being here. Make sure to leave a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel as well. If you guys like access to that 9-to-5 NFL DFS lineup builder, head on over to 9to5sports.com, guys. Get access to that tool for a low monthly cost of $10 a month. I appreciate you being here. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.